Britain in the 1970s was a country caught between tradition and change. The great days of British industry were beginning to fade. Strikes and fuel shortages filled the headlines, and many famous companies were struggling to survive. But despite all of that, Britain still built some of the most stylish and ambitious cars in the world. Large saloons cruised through busy city streets. Chrome trim still sparkled under grey British skies. Walnut dashboards, leather seats, and smooth suspension made these cars feel important. Back then, owning a luxury British car meant something. It showed success, confidence, and class. But not every car lived up to its promise. Some looked beautiful but broke down constantly. Others were rushed to market with poor engineering. And a few became symbols of disappointment for the very companies that built them. Today, we're counting down 10 of the most disappointing British cars of the 1970s. Some were meant to save struggling companies. Others were expected to dominate the luxury market. Instead, many became expensive mistakes that owners quickly regretted buying. And trust me, some of these cars were far more disappointing than people expected. Number 10. The Triumph Stag. Introduced in 1970 by Triumph, the Stag was supposed to become Britain's answer to the Mercedes SL. At first glance, it looked perfect. The styling was elegant and modern, with a long bonnet, soft curves, and a distinctive roll bar that made it instantly recognizable. It looked expensive, sophisticated, and stylish. Inside, buyers found wood trim, comfortable seats, and a relaxed driving position designed for long journeys. Under the bonnet sat a 3.0-liter V8 engine developed by Triumph itself. On paper, everything sounded promising. People loved the idea of a British Grand Tourer that mixed luxury with open-top driving. It quickly attracted attention from professionals, businessmen, and buyers who wanted something more exciting than a standard saloon. But problems arrived almost immediately. The engine overheated constantly. Timing chains failed. Cooling systems became infamous for causing breakdowns. Many owners lost confidence in the car within months. It was a huge disappointment because the Stag had all the ingredients to become a British classic. Instead, it became one of the decade's biggest missed opportunities. Number 9. The Austin Allegro. Launched in 1973 by British Leyland, the Allegro was designed to replace the hugely successful Austin 1100 and 1300 range. That alone created enormous pressure. The company hoped this car would become Britain's next great family favorite. The Allegro featured soft suspension, front-wheel drive, and practical interior space. Early advertisements promised comfort, innovation, and modern styling. But buyers quickly noticed something strange. The design looked awkward from almost every angle. The car sat too high, the proportions looked unusual, and some versions even came with the infamous square steering wheel that confused many drivers. Mechanically, the Allegro also suffered from poor build quality. Panels rattled, electrical faults appeared regularly, and reliability became a constant complaint. People wanted to love it because Britain desperately needed a successful family car during the difficult economic climate of the 1970s. Instead, the Allegro became a symbol of everything going wrong inside British Leyland. Even today, its reputation remains difficult to escape. Number 8. The Jensen Healey. The Jensen Healey arrived in 1972 as a replacement for the older Austin Healey sports cars. Built by Jensen Motors, it aimed to combine British sports car charm with more modern engineering. The styling was clean and simple. It lacked the dramatic curves of earlier British sports cars, but many buyers appreciated its modern appearance. Under the bonnet sat a Lotus-built 2.0-liter engine that promised strong performance. And when it worked properly, the car could actually feel quite exciting. Drivers enjoyed the handling, the lightweight feel, and the open-top experience. But reliability once again destroyed the dream. The Lotus engine developed a terrible reputation for oil leaks and mechanical failures. Build quality problems also appeared throughout the car. Owners often found themselves dealing with repairs instead of enjoying weekend drives. That disappointment hurt badly because people genuinely wanted another great British roadster. Instead, the Jensen Healey became another forgotten frustration of the 1970s. Number 7. The Rover SD1. When Rover introduced the SD1 in 1976, people were stunned. The car looked futuristic. Its sleek hatchback shape, low nose, and wide stance made it look unlike anything else on British roads. Many people compared it to Italian sports saloons from companies like Ferrari. In fact, the design was so impressive that the SD1 even won European Car of the Year. Inside, the car offered generous space, soft seating, and a comfortable ride designed for long-distance driving. Higher models came with Rover's famous V8 engine, giving the car strong performance. At first, it looked like Rover had created a masterpiece, but the reality became far less glamorous. Build quality problems appeared everywhere. Paint defects, electrical failures, poor panel gaps, and unreliable assembly quickly damaged the car's reputation. British Leyland's factory troubles during the 1970s only made matters worse. Many buyers loved the design but hated the ownership experience. That was the tragedy of the Rover SD1. It had the potential to become one of Britain's greatest executive cars. Instead, poor quality control ruined its success. Number 6. The Morris Marina. Released in 1971 by Morris, the Marina was created as a simple family car aimed directly at Ford's hugely successful Cortina. British Leyland needed strong sales desperately. The Marina used basic engineering and familiar mechanical parts to keep development costs low. It came in several body styles, including saloons, estates, and coupes. For many families, it looked affordable and practical. At first, sales were strong, but criticism soon followed. The handling felt outdated even by early 1970s standards. Steering was heavy, suspension felt old-fashioned, and build quality problems appeared regularly. Car journalists were especially harsh toward it. Yet despite all the criticism, the Marina somehow became extremely common on British roads. Perhaps that was part of the disappointment. Britain expected innovation and progress from its car industry. Instead, the Marina felt like a step backwards. Number 5. The Lotus Elite. Lotus launched the new Elite in 1974. Unlike the older lightweight Elite from the past, this version became a luxurious shooting brake designed to mix sports car performance with everyday practicality. And visually, it certainly stood out. The wedge-shaped design looked futuristic and dramatic. Hidden headlights and sharp lines gave it a very modern appearance for the time. Inside, the car felt far more luxurious than earlier Lotus models. The handling was excellent too. As expected from Lotus, the car could corner beautifully and felt agile on winding roads. But reliability quickly became a nightmare. Electrical problems, weak build quality, and fragile mechanical components frustrated owners constantly. Many buyers loved driving the Elite. They simply hated owning it. That combination became common among many British cars during the 1970s. Beautiful ideas, terrible reliability. Number 4. The Vauxhall Firenza Droop Snoot. Introduced in the early 1970s, the Firenza aimed to bring excitement and sporty styling to Vauxhall's lineup. The famous Droop Snoot version looked especially dramatic. Its aerodynamic front end, sloping nose, and sporty body kit gave it a bold appearance that stood out immediately. For younger drivers, it looked modern and aggressive. Under the bonnet sat larger engines that offered decent performance for the time. Vauxhall hoped it could compete against sporty Ford models and attract enthusiastic buyers. But several problems held it back. Build quality was inconsistent, fuel economy suffered during the oil crisis years, and the styling divided opinion. Some people loved it. Others thought it looked strange. Sales never matched expectations. Today, the Firenza is remembered more fondly than it was during its own era. But in the 1970s, it became another car that failed to deliver the success its company desperately needed. Number 3. The Princess. British Leyland launched the Princess in 1975 under both Austin and Morris branding. And honestly, it looked incredibly modern for the time. The sharp wedge styling, large cabin, and futuristic appearance made it seem like a car from the future. Compared to many traditional British saloons, the Princess looked bold and advanced. People were curious. The spacious interior and soft suspension also made it comfortable for family use. But once again, quality problems destroyed confidence. Mechanical faults became common. Rust appeared too quickly. Electrical systems caused endless frustration. Worst of all, the car lacked a hatchback despite its shape making it seem perfect for one. Many buyers simply expected more. The Princess became one of the clearest examples of wasted potential in 1970s Britain, because underneath all the problems was a genuinely clever idea. Number 2. The Reliant Scimitar GT. Built by Reliant during the 1970s, the Scimitar GT was one of Britain's most unusual cars. It combined sports car performance with estate car practicality long before crossovers became popular. The long body, large glass area, and shooting brake shape made it instantly recognizable. Princess and famously owned one, which gave the car additional publicity. Under the bonnet sat Ford the 5.6 engines that provided solid performance. Many drivers enjoyed its comfortable long-distance cruising ability. But despite the attention, sales always remained limited. The styling confused many buyers who wanted either a proper sports car or a traditional estate. Build quality problems also hurt its reputation. For some people, the Scimitar felt ahead of its time. For others, it simply felt awkward. And that uncertainty stopped it from becoming the success Reliant hoped for. And now, number 1, the Triumph TR7. When the TR7 arrived in 1975, Triumph believed it was creating the future of British sports cars. Advertisements proudly called it the shape of things to come. And for a moment, people believed it. The wedge-shaped design looked futuristic and completely different from older British roadsters. Hidden behind the dramatic styling was a comfortable interior and modern engineering intended to appeal to younger buyers. The TR7 was supposed to help Triumph compete internationally, especially in America. But almost everything went wrong. Build quality became a disaster. Electrical faults, engine troubles, leaking roofs, and poor assembly quality damaged the car immediately. Industrial strikes and factory problems inside British Leyland only made matters worse. Many early buyers lost patience quickly. What made the disappointment even worse was the enormous expectations surrounding the TR7. This was not supposed to be just another sports car. It was supposed to represent the future of British motoring. Instead, it became one of the clearest symbols of Britain's struggling car industry during the 1970s. And yet, strangely enough, many people still remember it fondly today. Perhaps that's a strange magic of old British cars. Even the disappointing ones still carry personality, charm, and memories that modern cars sometimes lack. The 1970s were difficult years for Britain's car industry. Factories struggled, companies merged, and reliability problems damaged reputations around the world. But despite all of that, these cars still became part of everyday British life. They filled streets, sat in family driveways, and carried people through one of Britain's most complicated decades. Some failed badly, some deserved better, and a few simply arrived at the wrong time. But together, they tell the story of a changing Britain. A country still trying to build stylish, ambitious cars while the world around it was rapidly changing. And perhaps that's why people still talk about them today. Not because they were perfect, but because they captured a very different moment in British motoring history.